Before we really get going with Adobe Comp CC, I think it's important for you to understand all of the interface elements that are inside of this application. We've already seen what the purple button does at the top left-hand corner, but let's take a look at the little strip on the left-hand side. This little plus sign here allows me to quickly and easily create a new composition to start working on. If you didn't want to do that, you could tap close and it will automatically close it and add that new composition to your composition carousel. Now you can see here on this screen, we see the words new composition at the bottom. We also see a little plus sign and we see a trash can. Where you see the word new composition, you can actually tap that with your finger and it will allow you to rename this composition. And I highly recommend that you do so because if you're creating multiple compositions at a time, you want to make sure you can keep track of what each one is supposed to be. Then you hit OK and all of your changes will then be saved. If you want to create a new composition from this screen, just tap that little plus icon down there, and that's going to automatically create a new composition for you as well. You can see this little trash can icon. When you tap that, it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete this? Deleting cannot be undone. Just tap OK, and that composition disappears. When you're ready to enter into a composition to start working on it, simply tap in the main window up at the top, and it will take you into the composition. The composition window has two modes. Those modes are drawing mode and object mode. By default, you're inside object mode, which means if there are objects out here on your composition, you'll be allowed to select them, move them around, scale them, rotate them, etc. If you want to get into drawing mode, take a look over here on the left-hand side. You'll see this little gray tab. That is where you tap that little pin, and it automatically enters you into drawing mode. You'll see now that the tab has turned purple, and at the top of the screen, it says Start Drawing to create new objects. So as I start to draw, new objects will then be placed on my screen. You'll notice when I start drawing, I can't simply tap on that object to manipulate it. It registers those as gestures, like I'm trying to draw something. If I wanted to move this, I would tap the X on the left-hand side, then I could select it, and I could resize it any way I wanted to, or move it around just like so. Also, you have the ability here, when you have an object selected, to delete it. Down here at the bottom, you'll notice a trash can icon. If I want to get rid of that, just simply tap the trash can, and that item is gone. If you want to undo that, you can simply use 3 fingers. Tap and hold on your screen. You'll notice that little time bar across the top. I can start dragging with my 3 fingers, and I can actually go back in time to see exactly what has happened. So right now I've got 3 fingers on the screen, and I'm scrolling back and forth to go through my history states for this particular project. Once I'm happy with where that is, somewhere like that, I'll let go with my fingers, and there remains the object. Up at the top, you'll see several tools, and the tools will change based on what mode you're in. Currently, we're in object mode. So we see at the top we have shapes. We also have access to libraries. We have text, which just inserts lorem ipsum. We also have images, which we can bring in as placeholders, or we can get them from the camera roll on my iPad. We can take a photo with my iPad, or we can get files from your Creative Cloud account or from the Creative Cloud Marketplace. This little icon will allow you to send your work to different applications like InDesign, Illustrator, and even Photoshop. The settings icon on the far right-hand side of the screen allows you to change the format of the composition. We'll talk a little bit more about that when I show you how to create your first comp here in just a minute. You'll also see toggle switches in here for Smart Guides and Canvas tooltips. Smart Guides allow you to easily line objects up on your canvas, and I highly recommend you leave those on. Canvas tooltips are just basically things that will pop up from time to time to let you know how things work. Until you get familiar with Adobe Comp CC, I highly recommend that you leave this turned on as well. Anytime you have one of those options selected at the top there, you can deselect them or make them go away by tapping the same icon you used to activate them. In the far right-hand corner, you will see these little arrows pointing in either direction. That means enter full screen. If you tap that, the tools will simply disappear and you will be inside of full screen mode. That just gives you a little bit more working space because the iPad screen can be a little small when you're working on a lot of different things at one time. All you have to do to get rid of this is tap that same icon again and the tools will return. When you're inside of drawing mode, you'll notice that the tools change significantly because here they expect you to do all of the heavy lifting by drawing with your finger. So the only thing you'll see here are the tips to draw, the send to various applications, and then the settings button, which allows you to change the format, turn on and off Smart Guides, and Canvas tooltips. You'll also see the full screen mode over on the right-hand side, and I highly recommend that you jump into that when you're drawing objects once you've nailed down all of the gestures. It just makes it easier to work with because you have a little bit more screen real estate. Again, to close this, just go up to the top left corner and tap close. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our brief tour of the interface. Let's actually dive into this thing and start creating something.